When I purchased the 5-acre plot just outside the Maple Ridge HOA boundary, I thought I was finally buying peace. After years of dealing with restrictive neighborhood rules, endless fines, and nosy board members in my previous community, I wanted one thing above everything else: freedom. No committees. No surprise fees. No board members measuring my grass length with a ruler. My new land sat right across the street from the HOA's gated entrance, separated only by a weathered split-rail fence and a gravel road. To me, the place felt perfect. It had open fields, a line of pine trees on the north edge, and an old barn that needed work but had character. I planned to restore the barn, build a cabin, and live quietly. It was supposed to be simple. However, the HOA did not like that. I first met them 3 days after moving in. I had barely set up my temporary trailer when I saw 3 people walking toward me in a tight formation, like a marching squad. The leader, an older woman with a stiff haircut and sunglasses too large for her face, introduced herself with a tone that felt more like a warning. "My name is Margaret Price," she said. "I am the president of the Maple Ridge Homeowners Association." The 2 people behind her nodded as if they were her personal bodyguards. One held a clipboard. The other squinted at me like I was an unwelcome stain on his clothes. I replied politely, "Nice to meet you. But I am not part of the HOA, so I am not sure what you need." Margaret's smile tightened. "We need to discuss your activities." "What activities?" I asked. "I just moved in." She gestured toward the open field. "Your trailer. Your construction tools. Your equipment. It is all in direct violation of Maple Ridge community standards." I stared at her, confused. "But I am not in Maple Ridge. This land is not part of the HOA." Margaret inhaled sharply, like she smelled something unpleasant. "This land is adjacent to our community. Anything you do here affects our property values. There is nothing illegal about me parking my trailer or bringing in my tools," I replied calmly. The man with the clipboard cleared his throat. "We will be drafting a notice." "A notice for what?" I asked. "For non-compliance," he said. I tried not to laugh. "You cannot issue notices to someone who is not a member of your HOA." The trio stood stiffly, as if they had never encountered resistance in their lives. Finally, Margaret said, "We will see about that." And they walked away. I should have known right then that things would escalate. The next morning, I found a bright yellow envelope taped to my trailer door. It said, "Maple Ridge HOA, formal warning." Inside was a list of violations. Unauthorized temporary dwelling. Unapproved construction materials. Excessive noise. Visual disruption. At the bottom was a threatened fine of $100 per day. I took the notice, walked across the road, and placed it neatly on the HOA information board for all their residents to see. Then I went back to work on clearing my land. For a week, nothing happened. I thought maybe they had realized they had no authority over me. I was wrong. Early on a Tuesday morning, while I was digging post holes for a fence, I heard a loud rumbling sound. The vibration shook the ground slightly, like distant thunder. At first, I thought it was a passing truck on the county road. But the noise grew louder and steadier. I stepped out of the field and looked toward the HOA entrance. 2 bulldozers were rolling out of the gated community, accompanied by a white pickup with the Maple Ridge logo on the side. The bulldozers were large, industrial-sized machines, the type used for clearing entire fields at once. And they were heading directly toward my land. I walked forward, waving my arms. "Hey! Stop!" But they did not stop. In fact, they accelerated. The HOA president stood in the back of the pickup, gripping the rail, yelling something I could not hear over the engine noise. Her face was red with determination, almost triumphant. It hit me all at once. they actually thought they were going to bulldoze my land. They were crossing the road now. Crossing onto my property. I could barely believe it. This was not a simple misunderstanding or a bureaucratic mistake. They were deliberately trying to destroy my land, my equipment, and everything I had invested in. That was the moment I pulled out my phone. I dialed the sheriff's office and said, "I need deputies here right now. An HOA is trespassing with heavy machinery and attempting to destroy private property." The dispatcher's voice sharpened. "They are doing what?" "They brought bulldozers," I said. "Real ones. We are sending units immediately." I put the phone away, squared my shoulders, and stepped directly into the path of the oncoming machines. If the HOA wanted a battle, they were about to get one. And this time, the law was on my side. The bulldozers slowed only when they were close enough that I could see the dirt caking their treads. Their engines roared like beasts straining at the leash. I did not move from their path. If they wanted to destroy my land, they would have to risk running me over to do it. The pickup truck stopped beside them, and the door opened. Margaret Price, the HOA president, marched toward me with furious purpose. Her sunglasses reflected the bulldozer blades behind her. She pointed at me as if I were a child misbehaving in a grocery store aisle. "You are obstructing community improvement work," she shouted. "This is my land," I said. "You have no authority here." She scoffed. "Your land is an eyesore. Your equipment is dangerous. And your presence is a threat to the peaceful standard our community expects." I looked at the bulldozers again. "So you decided to fix that by committing felony destruction of property?" She lifted her chin. "The board voted. We are correcting a blight. You cannot vote to destroy someone else's property." Behind her, the two operators sat in their cabins, unsure whether to proceed. They eyed me nervously. They clearly knew this was not legal. I pulled out my phone and began recording. "Say that again for the camera, please." Margaret's face changed instantly. Her confidence wavered. "Stop recording. You do not have permission." "This is my land," I repeated. "I can record anything I want on it." She opened her mouth to argue, but a new sound cut her off, a pair of sirens growing louder and louder. The bulldozer engines quieted slightly, and everyone turned toward the road. Two county sheriff cruisers whipped around the bend, gravel spitting out behind their tires. They pulled into my driveway, blocking the bulldozers from moving forward. Deputy Carlson stepped out of the first cruiser, hand resting on his belt, eyes narrowed as he scanned the scene. "What exactly is happening here?" he asked. I pointed at the machines. "They drove onto my land with bulldozers and attempted to destroy my property." Deputy Carlson turned to Margaret. "Is that true?" Margaret straightened her vest. "We are acting under HOA authority to correct violations." "There are no violations," I said. "I am not part of their HOA." Deputy Carlson looked from me to the machines, then back to Margaret. "Why are your bulldozers on land the HOA does not own?" Margaret lifted her chin again, returning to her self-appointed queenly posture. "This land affects our community. We are protecting our homeowners from falling property values." "That does not give you the right to enter private land," the deputy said. "It does when the land becomes a hazard," she snapped. I gestured at my perfectly legal tools and trailer. "This is not a hazard." Margaret jabbed a finger at me. "It is a hazard to our quality of life. And our legal team confirmed we have." "No," Deputy Carlson cut in firmly. "You do not have that authority." For the first time, the bulldozer operators turned off their engines completely. The sudden quiet made the tension even heavier. Margaret looked thrown. "This is ridiculous. We issued him warnings." Deputy Carlson raised a brow. "Warnings? To someone who is not in your HOA?" She hesitated, then reverted to arrogance. We maintain standards in this community. It is our duty. He stepped closer to her. Let me be very clear. If these bulldozers had damaged even 1 inch of his property, you would be facing charges. Multiple charges. Margaret's eyes widened. Charges? For doing what is necessary. For trespassing, destruction of property, reckless endangerment, and possibly coercion, the deputy said. This is not a small disagreement. This is criminal. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The second deputy, a younger officer named Myers, approached the bulldozer operators. Who told you to come here? The older operator pointed at Margaret without hesitation. She hired us. Said the land was under her authority. Did she tell you this was private property not belonging to the HOA? We figured that out when we crossed the public road, he admitted quietly. The deputy nodded slowly, writing notes. The operator visibly paled. Margaret's voice finally returned, but it cracked with desperation. Officers, you do not understand. This man is trying to lower the value of our homes. He is bringing in farm tools. He is building without permission. He refuses to follow community rules. I spoke evenly. Because they do not apply to me. Deputy Carlson turned to her. He is right. And you need to understand this clearly. His land is not HOA land. Your authority stops at your property line. That is not acceptable, she snapped. We will not allow someone to ruin our neighborhood. It is not your decision, the deputy said. And if you step foot on his property again without permission, you will be removed. Removed. He did not say escorted. He said removed. Margaret stiffened. You will regret siding with him. No, Deputy Carlson said calmly. I am siding with the law. She looked ready to explode, but she finally turned and stomped back toward her truck. The bulldozer operators followed, eager to escape the escalating situation. The deputies stayed behind while the machinery retreated down the road. When the HOA convoy disappeared behind the gate, Deputy Carlson turned to me. Sir, I suggest you keep documenting everything. I plan to, I said. He nodded. Good. Because something tells me this is not over. And I knew he was right. It was only the beginning. The next morning, the air felt unnaturally still, as if even the wind was waiting to see what would happen. The sheriff's trucks had left the night before, the bulldozers had been hauled away, and the once arrogant HOA board members had retreated behind their gates. But I knew this battle was far from over. People who were used to controlling everything rarely accepted defeat without trying something even more reckless. I sat on the tailgate of my truck with a cup of coffee, watching the sun rise over my land. The soil was torn where the bulldozers had started their path, leaving long, ugly scars across the grass. It was quiet, but a tension hung in the air. The HOA would try something else. I could feel it. Around 9 o'clock, a gray SUV pulled into my driveway. The sheriff stepped out, hat under his arm, face serious but calm. Morning, he said as he approached. I completed the initial report of yesterday's incident. I need to go over a few details with you. Of course, I said. Anything you need. He pulled out a small notebook. First, I want to confirm that the HOA crossed onto your property without permission and brought construction equipment. Yes, I said. I have photographs and video as well. Good. That will be important. He hesitated for a moment. I also spoke to several witnesses inside the HOA. Not everyone there agrees with what their board did. That surprised me. Really? Apparently, this is not the first time the Maple Ridge leadership has overstepped its authority. But it is the first time it crossed into criminal territory. I nodded slowly. So what happens next? "We are opening a full investigation into the HOA Board," he said. "Based on what we saw, this goes beyond trespassing. There is potential for criminal conspiracy, unlawful destruction of property, and misuse of community funds." I blinked. Misuse of funds? The sheriff gave a tired smile. Bulldozers are not cheap. One witness claims the HOA took money from their maintenance budget to hire them. "People inside the HOA must be furious," I said. "They are," he confirmed. "My office received 12 calls last night from residents demanding answers." Before I could respond, another vehicle approached. A small silver sedan rolled to a stop, and a woman in her 30s stepped out. She looked nervous, glancing around before walking toward us. "Mr. Hale?" she asked. "Yes," I said cautiously. She swallowed. "My name is Lisa Daniels. I live in Maple Ridge. I heard what happened yesterday and... well, I brought something you might want to see." She held out a tablet. The sheriff and I leaned in as she tapped a video file. The recording began with shaky footage inside what looked like a conference room. The camera was angled downward as if someone had hidden it in a purse or jacket pocket. In the video, HOA President Margaret Price stood at the front of the room, pointing at a projected map of my land. "We cannot allow this eyesore to remain across from our entrance," she said. "It makes our entire community look cheap." One board member asked nervously, "But we do not have authority to regulate property outside our boundary." Margaret waved her hand dismissively. "No one is going to challenge us. He is just one man. If we move quickly, he will not have time to react." Another voice asked, "Move quickly how?" Margaret's answer made my stomach twist. "We clear the area. Remove the trailer, the equipment, and whatever he is building. The bulldozer company is already scheduled." The sheriff exhaled slowly. "This is more than enough." Lisa looked apologetic. "Most of us did not know any of this was happening." Margaret pushed the decision through without a community vote. She threatened to fine anyone who disagreed. "That explains a lot," I said. The sheriff straightened. "Ms. Daniels, this footage is extremely valuable. I will need a copy." Lisa nodded and transferred the video directly to his device. When she left, the sheriff turned back to me. "With this evidence and witness statements, we can proceed with charges. I expect the district attorney will be involved soon." "Good," I said firmly. "Because they are not done. I have a feeling they will try something desperate." The sheriff gave a grim nod. "People like Margaret rarely take responsibility. Prepare yourself." He left shortly after, leaving me alone on the land once more. I thought the HOA's behavior had reached its worst point with the bulldozers, but the sheriff's warning stayed in my mind. He was right. Because later that afternoon, just as I finished repairing one of the damaged fence posts, I noticed movement at the tree line. 3 HOA board members were standing there, half-hidden, watching me. They whispered among themselves before slipping back toward their neighborhood. And then I saw the new sign posted near the edge of my property. "Notice, non-HOA land activity under review." They still believed they had authority over me. They had broken the law, been caught, and still thought they could win. I brushed the dirt from my hands, stared at the sign, and said aloud, "All right. If they want a war, then I will finish it." And in Chapter 4, that is exactly what I did. The next morning, the entire valley smelled like diesel and damp soil. The sun was barely rising, stretching long orange lines across my property, but I could already hear commotion at the far edge of the land. Voices. Engines. Metal clanking. For 3 days the HOA board had been unusually quiet after the sheriff shut down their bulldozer stunt. Too quiet. I should have known they would not give up. But even I did not expect what they had planned next. I poured myself a mug of coffee, stepped onto my porch, and froze. A whole fleet of HOA board members, 12 of them, stood right outside my property line, all wearing matching neon vests like they had organized a construction crew. Behind them sat 3 rented excavators, a line of trucks, and a stack of metal stakes. It looked like they were about to build the Great Wall of China across my property. At the front stood President Barbara, clutching a clipboard like it was a courtroom exhibit. "Good morning, Mr. Hayes," she called out snidely, like this was a friendly neighborly visit. "We have returned to finalize the community boundary adjustments." I raised an eyebrow. I do not recall agreeing to any adjustments. Or any boundaries. Or anything involving you at all. Barbara gave a tight smile. "We reviewed our charter. The HOA has the right to manage any land that impacts community aesthetics." I sipped my coffee. "This land does not impact your community. It is outside of it." "Well." Her smile widened unnaturally. "We voted to expand the community perimeter." I laughed. "Hard. You voted yourselves the right to steal more land?" "It is not theft," she snapped. "It is administrative planning. Try that line on someone who failed 7th grade civics." She took a deep breath, visibly annoyed. "We will be erecting a community barrier. To ensure consistency." I looked at the stakes and excavators. "You are building a wall." "A decorative boundary enhancement," she corrected sharply. Before I could reply, the excavator operator fired up the engine. The machine's arm rose like an angry metal dinosaur, swinging toward the first corner where they planned to dig, my land. Barbara smirked. "We gave you a chance to cooperate. Now, step aside. This is happening." I held up one finger. "Hold on." Then I walked calmly into my house. Barbara shouted after me, "Running away will not help you." I ignored her. I walked directly to my desk, picked up an envelope I had been holding onto for 2 weeks, and stepped back outside. The HOA board members had gathered around the excavator, cheering like they were opening a theme park ride. The operator lowered the bucket toward the soil. I raised the envelope. "Before you dig so much as a teaspoon of dirt, maybe read this." Barbara scoffed. "We are far past the stage of letters and objections." "Funny," I said, "because this is not an objection. It is an approval." Her brow wrinkled. "Approval for what?" I handed the envelope to the nearest board member. He opened it reluctantly and read it, eyes widening. Then he passed it to Barbara with trembling hands. She scanned the document, and her face drained of all color. "What? What is this?" "It is the county's official determination," I said, "confirming that your HOA illegally attempted to modify zoning lines, trespass on private land, and conduct unauthorized construction." Barbara swallowed hard. "This is falsified. It must be." "Nope. That is the sheriff's signature at the bottom. And the county commissioner's stamp. And the land surveyor's certificate. All confirming that your HOA is prohibited from performing any construction within 30 yards of my land." I pointed at her excavator. "That machine is currently 9 yards away." The excavator operator instantly shut off the engine. Barbara sputtered, "You tricked us. You manipulated the situation." "I protected my property," I said. "You tried to steal it. That is on you." One of the board members stepped closer to her. "Barbara. You told us everything was legal." "It is legal." She insisted, but her voice cracked right down the middle. Another board member looked at me. "What happens now?" I nodded toward the envelope. "See page 3. Barbara flipped through it, and gasped. "It says we are personally liable for damages?" "Yep." Her knees nearly buckled. The sheriff's truck pulled up right on cue, dust swirling behind it. Deputy Collins climbed out, adjusting his hat. "Morning, folks," he said. "I got a call about unauthorized heavy machinery parked on prohibited land." Barbara threw her hands up. "This is harassment. He is weaponizing the sheriff's office against us." Collins scratched his chin. "No ma'am. You filed no permits. You ignored the county order. And you brought 3 excavators into restricted space. That's looking like a misdemeanor trespass charge. At minimum." Barbara's jaw dropped. The board members started whispering in panic. The excavator operator jumped out of the machine, practically running back to his truck. I folded my arms. "So, Barbara. Still building your decorative enhancement?" She glared at me, but her voice came out strangled. We are withdrawing today's work." The board members practically sprinted away, abandoning their stakes and equipment. As they left, Deputy Collins leaned over and muttered to me, "You really know how to stir up a hornet's nest." I shrugged. "They chose the wrong landowner." He smiled. "Glad you finally taught them where the line is." Literally. Barbara's SUV peeled out of the dirt road, kicking up dust and frustration behind her. And just like that, the valley fell silent again. I took a final sip of my coffee. Peace. At last. And the best part? That was only the beginning of the HOA's downfall.